And what a wonderful introduction to our focus for this month. We're talking about compassion. That's the focus for this month. And I know that because I haven't been reading along on our interactive journal, and I had to go back to the beginning of this week and catch up. And I found that actually laid out for us in this week's reading are all the keys to activating a heart of compassion, the essential keys for having a compassionate experience in life. So I was reading through them and I noticed that on the first day of the week there's a great little bit of inspiration from Robert McCloskey, and I don't know if you know who that is. He's an American children's author and illustrator. He won tremendous awards for his work, and one of his most famous books is about, what is it called? Make Way for Ducks, exactly. And it's this great story about a family of ducks that make their home in a pond in a really big city like Boston or Chicago or something like that. And it's good. The apex of the story is this great picture of the traffic stopping and the friendly policeman stopping the traffic for the family of ducks to go through, and compassionately waiting for the family of ducks. And it's just so amazing to me that right around that day, a family of ducks moved into our property. And the family is still in the eggs. And so the mama duck moved onto the property and started making her nest right outside of the bookstore, right on the same day. And so we've been looking at that. And so we put a little fence around it, and we're asking people to keep their distance because she seems okay. You know how ducks are. They go, come back, lay more eggs. And she seems to be fine. So we ask you, don't feed her. We're taking care of her, and we're just seeing what she wants to do there. Isn't it coincidental, Actually, somebody reminded me that our practitioner, Holly, who passed away, she was the world's best duck impersonator. Yes. In fact, if you got her started, she just wouldn't quit. You got 20 minutes of Donald Duck right there. And then the duck arrives on the property, and we're going, who is that out there? So we might call the duck Holly or Quack Yen, I don't know. Listen to the quote though. I know, says Robert McCloskey, I know that you believe you understand what you think I said. But I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. And right there he announces the first important key for developing a heart of compassion is deep listening, conscious listening. This is how it goes. I saw a cartoon strip in which a little girl looks up at her father who is reading the newspaper and says, Dad, you have to listen to me with your eyes as well as your ears. Listening for me is something that requires a conscious choice to go beyond the surface experience of hearing the words. It means to listen to the message of what is being said between and beyond the words. I think people who have trained themselves to truly hear what others are saying are in possession of tremendous personal strength and become helpful, even influential among their friends and colleagues. There it is. The first key to developing a heart of compassion is this ability to listen. And as I read through that, I remembered something that Reverend Cress Michaels said last week when he was here. And it stuck with me because he said, people don't need your opinions. They don't even need your judgments. What they need is your love. And that really struck a chord with me because I was thinking of all the many times, the trying periods in my life when what I needed most was somebody to listen to me, to hear me out. How those moments were marked with this desire to be listened to. And when it happened, when I was listened to, I had that feeling of being the recipient of tremendous compassion. The first key to developing a heart of compassion is knowing how to listen. But it's closely related to the second key, which is to know how to listen while at the same time maintaining a very secure and strong sense of self. Because I noticed for me that, listening is important, and to listen deeply and carefully. It requires attention, and it's a tremendous act of kindness, but not to listen in such a way that I lose myself into the story. So one of the things that's helped me is the reminder that listening deeply doesn't mean I have to agree with you. And listening deeply to you doesn't mean I will ever completely understand you. And listening deeply to you doesn't mean any more than I'm willing to show up and witness your sharing. I certainly don't know that I'll ever be able to fix, adjust, inspire, change what I'm hearing. But I can witness it. And it's in that showing up, I'm going to listen, the showing up to listen, that some tremendous magical transaction takes place, soul to soul, and something happens. That's beyond all the things I think I could do if I'm busy trying to impose my ideas upon you. And so the next day gives some great advice for how we might listen that way, with an ear to noticing, where am I the same and where am I different from what I'm hearing? It's a great suggestion to help both listen and maintain a sense of personal identity. It says, listening deeply and carefully to others builds rapport and understanding and activates compassion. And maybe even more importantly, it can also help the one listening to become very clear about their own preferences and identity. Not only that, but listening in this way, how am I the same, how am I different, it also helps a person, I believe, become more comfortable with the idea that there's so much out there and I don't necessarily know how I'm going to fix the situations I hear and witness. And to become comfortable with that. And even if I have fixed it in my own life, it doesn't mean that that person who I'm listening to is going to be able to apply my method to their journey. There isn't a one-size-fits-all. And it brings me to the next important key in developing a heart of compassion. Listening first, and listening with a sense of self-identity, and finally, non-fixing. The best quick fix I ever had was a visit to my grandmother for a good venting. She would always listen attentively, nod frequently in understanding. Regardless of the severity of the case, the impossibility of the problem, or the chaos in my mind, her one simple response was almost always, it'll all work out in the end, it always does. There were times when her response would be frustrating. However, in retrospect, I see how much more I preferred her non-fixing response to my problems over the advice of many well-meaning friends who sometimes asked, have you tried this, have you tried that, have you thought this, have you thought that, have you affirmed this, have you affirmed that, have you treated this way? Do you know what I mean? And you know, even though I wrote this, I find that there are some times when I am not listening at all. Because I am stuck on expressing my point of view. I've got to make sure you hear what I think. Getting attention, getting heard, being understood, being validated. You know, I love talking. Oh, I love expressing ideas, you know. And I notice that for me to do all of that, there has to be somebody that's willing to do all of this. And how much am I spending on both sides of that? You know what I'm noticing? There are more broadcasters than receivers. Just saying. And if nobody's willing to listen, then nothing happens. Then all that's happening is I'm talking to myself about myself. How much fun is that? You know, over time, many people will say to me, oh, Reverend Edward, I want to be a minister just like you. And I say, really? Why? Because I want to know why. Because to listen to that answer will tell you so much. You know, sometimes people say, well, because I have a message. I have something to say. I want to teach. I want to get the message out there. I want to connect with people. I want to change lives. And the more they tell me that, the less convinced I am that they will ever be a good minister. You know, because, what I discovered is something that is true of ministry, it's also true of life. 90% of ministry and 90% of life is listening.